everybody. This is Carina from BreakFearFindFreedom. And today we're doing something a little bit different, a little bit off the wall, just a little bit. So my special guest today is Tom Kelly, and he's really, really cool dude, but I don't know much about him. We're talking about what is going to happen right now at this moment. And that's all that matters. It doesn't matter about past, doesn't matter about future, it just matters about what happens in this moment and the conversation we're going to have. So sit back, relax. This is going to be a very, very fun one. And let the games begin. Hello, Tom. How are you today?
Good, thanks, Carina. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Tom, tell us a bit about who Tom is at this precise moment right now.
even with the rehearsal for this, wow. Oh wow. Oh wow. Carina, if you start me talking about Tom Kelly, I will never stop. I guess one thing hit me on my bicycle this morning. You know the way they say it's not in California. I think you live in California too.
Yes.
It's not about the journey. It's not about the journey, man. It's about, sorry, it is about the journey, man. It's about the journey, but the journey is the destination, I suppose. So and you have read The Power of Now, like I have, I believe, and you were blown away by Eckhart Tolle, and I think you tended to agree with every single thing he said, insofar as you could understand it, right? Same here, just every single thing. And I meet other people who've read him, and they're not laughing all the time like you, and I think, you obviously didn't get him, you know? And then I think, oh, I'm not laughing all the time either. but obviously, if you read Eckhart Tolle and you understand what he says, if you're not laughing all the time, you're ready to, because you realize that that, like he says, the present moment is all there is, and that when you're fully in the present moment, there isn't any possibility of any smidgen of a suspicion of a trace or a residue of any problem to remain in the light of the present. It just can't be. So of course we fall out of it all the time, and we realize that there's resistance to the present moment all the time, and then realize, oh, that's cool too, because we're meant to. And in the moment we realize that we're not in the moment, we are in the moment in a sense. So yes. So was that an answer?
I think it's most appropriate for this the topic of today. So yes, it's a good answer, because I'm going to go and take you right back to resistance, right? Okay. And it's always like, it's so beautiful to be in the present moment, but it's always that resistance. The so-called past comes in, anxiety, the so-called future goes in. It's like, oh, what am I going to do? And we know that doesn't exist, right now at this moment. But what about resistance?
There's the power, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry, more editing needed, obviously. You were saying about resistance.
Yes.
Didn't get
wow.
A word.
Wow. This is crazy, this trying to record this. So I'm saying that when we're in the present moment, for one moment we resist this present moment, and we think about, oh, you get so anxious about the future, and then you think, oh, all the regrets and all the pain from the so-called past. But like you said, it's all here, and if you're really here at this moment, none of that really matters, but yet we resist it all the time. What about that for you?
Well, on the previous recording, which didn't work, you were saying that if you don't want to put on weight and you focus on that denial, lo and behold, you put on weight. Now, there's this strange thing called the law of attraction they talk about. I just, it doesn't attract me, all that stuff, because it doesn't, they don't suggest there's any scientific basis for it, and they kind of say do it, and I'm envious that it seems to work for them, so I get frustrated, so it kind of annoys me, but I know they're onto something, obviously. I like it to be either kind of all scientific or not scientific at all, and I think metaphysics and physics are all one thing. So I think what I understand of the spiritual world of formlessness works very much like the phenomenological world. So I think that the great teacher, Jesus, was a guy just like you and me, And I think you think so too. And Eckhart Tolle says the man on the cross is every man and every woman. He's an archetypal figure. He said, well, not literally. He says the man on the cross is an archetypal image. He is every man and every woman, I think is what he says. So Jesus in his great wisdom has said, is passed down to us as having said, deny thyself. And yet in the East, the self is the Christ, is the higher self, is the awareness, is the whatever our essence is. So the self itself is sometimes, but when it's translated as Jesus saying deny thyself, it means deny your ego, which according to Eckhart Tolle, of course, is your unobserved mind. So he's really saying observe your mind, and then your ego is gone. And when we're totally in this moment, the mind has stopped, has completely stopped. And we're fully, as you know. And when we've stepped in fully to the present moment, and thank you for helping me right into it, Carina. When we step fully into the present moment, fully into the light, all our problems dissolve. And even Paul, the great apostle, said that too, that the light burns up all the darkness, and everything exposed to the light becomes light. So that's easy, very easy to talk about. In the practical world, of course, it's extremely difficult. And my wife says it's near impossible when you have children running around the place. The question was?
The question was about a resistance. And on some level, it could be another form of denial as well. Like really, they're probably the same kind of, it's the same word.
Right.
It's the same kind of thing. So I think you probably answered that, because I'm going to just add the denial where we spoke about you have the law of attraction and everyone's like onto this law of attraction. And yes, I agree with you. There is some kind of, maybe there is something true to it. I mean, on some level. But again, I'm going to go back and say, a lot of times the universe, God, whoever you believe in, doesn't hear the word no, not. So if you say, I don't want to be fat, you find that you start eating more, and you do put on weight, or it's like, I'm not tired, or I don't want to be tired. And of course, the universe just hears tired. It doesn't hear, I don't want to. So that's what I'm saying about denial and resistance. So on one level, we know that, yet we still do it. So I don't know what the question is right now. So I've just gone off the track totally.
You've given me a tremendous gift. You've opened up. I never understood it until you uttered those words, that Jesus is about, I'm not a Christian, by the way, at all, but I think he was a magnificent teacher. He said he said a few things about prayer. One of them was, when you pray as though you've already received it.
Yes.
In that, there's no resistance there. There's just, oh, I have it. So instead of saying, I wish I would have it, or instead of saying, I wish I didn't have this other thing, you're saying, you're experiencing what it is like to have that abundance. And so you're in that abundance. So you're there. And when you step into the now, you realize the journey is over. You've reached the destination, and the destination is the journey, and the journey is the destination. And the quest for the Holy Grail, the quest is the Grail. I mean, that sounds like tremendous mumbo jumbo, but it's making sense to me, because, denial itself, or resistance, anything negative, means we're denying the present moment and all it contains. So that's fear. And yes, fear is exactly what we don't want. And when we're experiencing fear, generating resistance, we're in this mode of, I'm not in the right world. And as soon as you stop the denial and you step fully into you say, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be, doing exactly what I'm meant to be doing right now. And even the whatever residue of resistance I feel to it, or unease, that's okay too. And then that dissolves progressively. So what I love most about Eckhart Tolle is he says, he doesn't ever say, do this. He doesn't ever say, I'm the guru. He suggests, be your own guru, which is and he says, there's nothing I have access to at all that you don't have access to. And I love that. And he says, you may like to try and accept the present moment as it presents itself to you. And you may, when you find that you cannot do that at all, you may try and accept your non-acceptance. And I said, oh, cool, wow, I'm really off the hook. And in the moment, I'm full of resistance, but the little part of me that's saying I'm resisting is that essence saying, oh, that's there. Oh, cool, wow, I'm on the way. And I'm on the journey. So what you really revealed to me like never before, Carina, I have right now, is that whenever you're saying I don't want to be fat, instead of saying I'd like to be strong and fit and at my best physically to serve people as well as I can, then when you're concentrating on what you don't want, whether or not you manifest it, you're already in the state of I don't want this. And Tolle also says the age-old thing is what you fight, what you fight, you strengthen. What you resist persists. So, yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for revealing that to me, Carina. I never saw it as clearly as right now. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, for being the mirror, right, in this conversation. And like, I have to go back to what you resist persists, what you look at moves away. That's one of my favorite things, because that throughout my life, I've realized that the more I resist, and the more you resist the present moment, like we're going back to that, is the more you think like, oh, you know what, I wish I was there with that person, or I wish I was doing this or whatever. All you're doing is creating that resistance and pain and suffering. And why? Why do we insist on creating pain and suffering in our lives when basically our lives, if we in the present moment, we realize that only love is real anyway, but yet we tend to abuse ourselves and beat ourselves up constantly with things that, you know, like might have been, could have been, or would have been, or whatever, when at the end of the day, the present moment is all we have. And if you think about it, past, present, future, everything is here right now, right? So yes, and if you look at that and you see that, and again, you were talking about observing, when you look at it and you see it, then you realize, whoa, that's why I'm doing it, for whatever reason. Maybe it brings something up, a past, something that happened in the past, or something that someone said to you. But you can look at it and you can realize it, and then you can let it go. And it's like, oh, I don't need to abuse myself anymore on that level. So with that, I'm going to ask you about what you think about that. I'm going to put it right back to you.
You and I probably don't need to say anything more for each other, because we both agree. And I said in advance that this could be incredibly boring, because we probably agree about everything. If we agree about Eckhart Tolle, then we probably do agree about everything. But the reason of this podcast is
Whoa.
And it's so easy to utter mumbo jumbo and platitudes.
Okay, Tom, this is very interesting.
Example. Someone asked him once,
Sorry, I lost you. You froze for a bit again. And you were talking about your superpower. You obviously have very, very superpower. Your energy is much stronger than you thought you had, because this is insane. But let's go back to that and say, yes, you did say that we agreed. We agree on most things, right? And that would be boring. But you were talking about, the last thing I heard was platitudes, and that's something that I'd like to avoid, because it's an insult on anyone's intelligence. That's what I think. So can you just tell me what you were saying about that, please? Because I didn't hear you.
The best way to avoid platitudes maybe is to talk about practical situations. Yes. Somebody asked Eckhart Tolle, does he ever still lose the plot? Does he ever fall out of the moment? And then he said, I've been in a park recently with dogs. There was some big dog loose off a leash, and it was chasing a small dog. And I felt this indignation rising, they should keep. And I thought, oh, cool. Right. Thank you for saying that. You spent 8.5 months in that detention center, in prison, or whatever you called it. I listened to your interview with Dino. and it was very revealing. And you talked about the guards with your beautiful South African accent. It sounded like gods, the gods in chains, by the way. But during your 8.5 months there, I'm certain you didn't stay in the moment all the time, and you didn't even try probably to stay in the moment all the time. But I'm guessing that the 8.5 months there detained did a tremendous amount to help you focus on non-resistance after you came out.
Yes, I learned non-resistance there. I think because it's fun. It's like, well, what am I going to do? I might as well just go with the. I learned flow as well, you know, in some level. The interesting part was when I stepped out. I was actually talking about this the other day. When I stepped out of the van, and I was here alone, just holding all my journals in the dark, and it was midnight in the middle of nowhere. I had such an inclination to run back and say, hey, wait, you know what, I'm going back. That's safer there. And that was so interesting because it's amazing how that whole situation, you become so safe within a bad situation. And I don't know if that's the answer that I gave you, but it once I got out and, you know, things unraveled as they did when I got out, there was a whole different perception, but it was so easy to fall back into fear. And that's where Break Fear, Find Freedom came from, was that, you know, you're breaking those, you're breaking them, for the want of a better word. You're breaking those fears all the time, and you keep having to come back to the freedom of the present moment. It's so easy to just unravel and to remember. And sometimes you think, well, maybe it was better there, which is really weird. Because you're not in the present moment and you don't realize the beauty that is around. Well, for me, I didn't realize the beauty and the possibilities and the abundance around me. Again, it's about not being in the present moment. So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, I've forgotten what my question was. That's okay. My question was that did you learn an awful lot about accepting the present moment when you're, because I often think of Mandela spending, I think, 27 years in Robben Island, some with breaking rocks, befriending his guards, and which was wonderful. I didn't see the movie, by the way, but befriending his guards, and after 27 years, lo and behold, he's ready to preside over South Africa for a short term. And he didn't know that those 27 years were preparing him for that, of course.
Yes.
And if he had known, he wouldn't have had the experience he needed, the humbling, I suppose, the burning off of every shred of ego, just about. And I guess that your 8.5 months in detention did something similar for you. It burned off a whole lot of ego.
Yes.
And taught you to try and, Which, so I guess looking back, I guess you look at it as some kind of a godsend, that imprisonment.
Yes, it was. It was a blessing, because it taught me a lot about myself, and it gave me courage, and I realized that I could speak up, and I had to speak up to survive, right? And lots of times that's what we don't realize, is that if we don't speak up, no one can read our minds. Like, you know, and befriending the gods. I was and befriending people that you'd never, ever even think about, or you'd probably on some level judge. I probably judged them on some level, right? So it's a great equalizer. And it does give you the courage to come out and share your message with the world, and realize that you have to share that message, because it's almost selfish if you don't, because you go through that it is a learning. It's like it's a chiseling off kind of thing. So yes, it's amazing how, if you look back on your life, all the things that you think happened to you, it really happened for you, to make you, you know. So Yeah, that was an interesting time. So thank you for listening to the podcast, by the way.
It's wonderful. I couldn't wait to get your book. I phoned up Barnes & Noble and they said it's print on demand. So I said, okay, I'll go to the author. She can have the profit. Hope it works like that.
Yes, yeah. They don't put it out, because when I heard it was on Barnes and Noble, I thought, whoa, I'm so excited. And then they went, no, it's not on the shelves. I said, like, what's the point?
Try humble again.
Exactly. Then you go like, oh, come on, you know this.
Oh boy, yeah. Hurry up and wait.
Yes, but that's all part of the fun.
Yes, it is.
So now I'm going to ask you again about, because we met on Josh's group meetings. Like, tell me a bit about how you met Josh, and how, because that's how, like, how do the dots all join up?
I spent 5 years working in a feed store, and one of the things I learned there was that if you tell the Christians they're all wrong, they don't love it. But if you actually listen to them, they begin to tell you the stuff that you really need to hear, you know. And often, if you really listen non-judgmentally, they begin to kind of really tell you the stuff you need to hear. and eventually, if you listen really, really, really non-judgmentally, they kind of tell you the BS that you were going to tell them anyway. Wow. So
I love that.
It's just amazing what you can do with a bit of non-resistance. And eventually they may even tell you that we're all children of God, and you kind of go, we are. So, and then you kind of say, so Jesus was his only son, but we're all children of God, and that's when the conversation might fall apart, and you say, oh boy, why did I start talking again? But I'm not a good listener, Carina. I'm working on it.
Okay, Tom, I've lost you again. You've frozen again. So while we're waiting for Tom to unfreeze, this is okay. Sorry. Okay, Tom. So you froze again. So now I'm going to ask you. You said you weren't a good listener.
No.
So let's go back to the question about how let's join all the dots with Josh and Tom and Carina. Like, let's join the dots here a bit.
And Aslan's Way, I think, and Aslan's Rainbow.
Yes,
Anybody is Googling Josh, Azlanz. After
yes.
I think Jesus was portrayed as the lion Aslan's in some
Narnia. And we did that event that you really weren't there, which was quite disappointing. But yes, we did the event as well, which was pretty cool.
And we both owe, I know I do owe an awful lot to Josh. So Josh Roberts, amazing man.
He's amazing. I love Josh. Yes.
So he was doing some presentations through Interfaith, and he got into the school system some way. And I thought he was very well-meaning, but obviously totally misguided, because he didn't agree with everything I thought. So I contacted him and told him as much, and instead of telling me to F off, he was incredibly courteous and gracious and polite, and tried desperately hard to find the common ground, and lo and behold, we did. So what I've learned from Josh is how to find common ground with it, or try to, that it's always there. There's always a win-win-win. And that Lao Tzu, as Wayne Dyer would say, the obstacle is the way. If I think Christianity insisting that we are not God, if I think Christianity is an obstacle, well, that's the way. And whatever is not the common ground, if that's the obstacle, then that is the way to the common ground. So Josh has powerfully, lovingly taught me that, and I'm incredibly grateful to him, and disagree with nearly everything he says. Not nearly everything he says, but much of, because we just the essence. I guess he also shows me, Carina, I'm saying too much. He's also showed me that though our words separate us and our dogma separates us, that every human being really knows at heart and understands and wants and is here for the same reason. Josh has taught me that.
Yes, it's amazing. I have to give a shout out to Josh for his graciousness and openness, and working together with him was amazing because we learned so, I mean, I learned so much about myself, and in the whole, you know, working together and creating this event was really a huge learning experience, and the event itself. So I love, and of course, every time when you know, when you connect with anybody in any relationship, it's always a learning experience on some level or another. So shout out to Josh.
Yes, yes.
So yes, so I love that, and it's also, that's also how we came together. But of course, we have the common ground of being both South African, so that's what attracted, that's what brought us together. Right. So yes, I love that. And then and now I've got to go back to the obstacle is the way, because again, I can see that. And it's about fear again, because you can see the obstacle in my life. You can see the obstacle and you're going like, no, I'm not going down that road because that's too scary. I'd rather go this way. And it's so funny how that obstacle just appears on every path that you want to go to. So what do you think about that, and how do you deal with it?
Fortunately, I served my apprenticeship. 5 years working in a feed store was wonderful. Kept meeting total strangers, and I used to try and have some kind of meaningful interaction with every single one of them every time, because otherwise I was just sweeping the warehouse floor. So like Mandela breaking his stones. So I'd say to people, what is the meaning of life? And then nearly everybody in Southern California told me the same thing in one word. And you know what that is?
What is it?
Huh? Question mark. And of course, exclamation mark maybe, but I didn't get it, you know. I mean, that's it right there, of course. But like an idiot, I didn't get it, and I'd repeat, and one lady, from what is relevant, one lady, an older lady, said, how do you mean? I said, well, obviously we're here to learn lessons and 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 lessons, but do we ever get to use them? Lessons for God or anything, you know? And she laughed then, and you know, when someone laughs, the truth is about to pop out. She laughed and she said, one thing is sure, the lessons get harder until we get them. And I thought, oh, that's good. I mean, the lesson is always kind of acceptance and humility and patience, but when it's getting harder and harder, you're saying, what the, and as soon as, what am I, oh yeah, I know. And then once you've got tick, move on. And sometimes it's very funny when you learn to do, you may have noticed any particular job, you learn to do it perfectly. One day you just rock it. You say, oh my, I actually did it right today. Now I can really do this. The universe suddenly says, yeah, move on. Say, what? I'm just getting good at this. Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is, oh, it's not. No, the point is, oh, no. So it's like that. And when we're resisting, and eventually, you say, oh yeah, I remember. Oh yeah, it's accept. It's Groundhog Day, isn't it? As soon as you accept, you're out of there. As long as you don't, you're just stuck there.
Yes. I love that. It's so true, and it just reminded me as you were talking about that. It's similar to when you really love something. For me, it's like I'm a minimalist, right? I'm not very sentimental. I don't get attached to things. Okay, which is obvious. I mean, like, but sometimes when you love something and you hold on and you hold on and you hold on and you hold on and you hold on, and then one day it just like breaks. Or, you know, let me give you an example. I found this headset. Now, I love Bluetooth headsets. They're so cool because you can just, but they've always been so big and bulky. And I found a pair that was perfect, right? Oh, and it was like, I just loved this headset. It was so cool. So I had it in my pocket all the time. And one day I was in a hurry. It was actually just before the event, which is quite funny. I was in a hurry and I had to do some laundry, right? And I had it in my pocket. So of course I do the laundry and I forget them in my pocket. So I destroy them. Good example, right?
Yes.
So what would you call that? Would you call that holding on too tightly, or would you call that sabotage?
The Buddhist, I think so much. One of the Tolle gets the essence of Christianity and Buddhism, as you know, and he kind of explains it. You know, if you're not a Buddha, you're a Buddhist. with all respect, you just don't get it. If you're not a Christ, you don't get it. You're a Judeo-Pauline, you know. But what is the point? So when they say let go of desire, you know, well, it's a desire to let go of desire. You can go, you know, don't become attached, but you're attached to becoming enlightened, and you know, and go for emptiness, but there's always stuff there, you know. It's impossible. But Tolle breaks it down. He doesn't say let go of desire, let go of attachment. It's when the shit happens, you kind of say, okay, that's it. And eventually one day you realize, oh, I'm not so attached. When I read Eckhart Tolle saying, try and accept each moment as though you've chosen it, and he says it 10,000 times ways, I guess every sentence in a sense in the book is leading you to that state. And one day I'm walking across the garage and I drop a bottle of antibiotic penicillin and it smashes. And instead of a stream of expletives, I kind of go, oh, glad it was penicillin, not imazole, which is worth 10 times more, you know. And wow, I'm making progress here, you know. That was very gratifying. You know, I'm really making progress here. That's all you want, isn't it?
Yes, yes, yes. I love that, because you can cry. It's like, oh no, what have I done? And you can call yourself, because I would have in the past as well, like, you're so stupid. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you in the present moment? Why aren't you listening? And all those terrible things, and beat myself up. That whip was so big. Or you can say, oh, well, you know what? That's life. I'll have to just go buy another pair, or whatever it is.
Yes.
And that's beautiful.
Yes.
On its own.
It sure is. And it's contagious too.
Yes.
It can be incredibly enervating, of course, too. I mean, a long time ago, I was always a student of psychology, and I realized I read wonderful John Cleese wrote a book with Robin Skinner called Life and How to Survive It. Really funny book, really wonderful. It opened up a lot for me. But I realized that if my first wife was a veterinarian, you know, if I came down and the first thing in the morning found that there was a huge doggy mess on the floor, and she might come down and say, it's no big deal. If she came down first and was fuming about it, I was no big deal. So, and sometimes cheerful, calm people can be enervatingly calm, of course, you know.
Yes.
Obviously we understand how that works.
Yes.
But in the long term, certainly when you're calm and accepting it, it does tend to infect other people. And
yes.
it is wonderful. It is.
Yes. Yes. I love that too. And that's also something that you keep having to learn and learn and learn, because, you know, like another example as well, talking about calm, is for me, I always used to get very anxious if people would fight, you know, like argue or scream or shout. It would be like, whoa. And I'd run away, or, you know, or hide that's the easiest thing. And the other day walking through, I heard someone arguing, and it was like, oh, you know what, all I can do is send you love, and it's okay. I don't have to rescue you, I don't have to save you, I don't have to do anything. And that's also acceptance, right? On some level. So that's also growth.
And if you look very carefully when you send them love, you do see an instantaneous response, don't you?
Yes.
Every time.
Yes. Yes.
Magic.
Yes. Yes. It's a beautiful thing. And then you realize, wow, we really are all connected. We really are all one. And obviously I had to see that for a reason, to see my growth and to share the love. So that's pretty cool.
Isn't it?
Yes. Yes. So what about freedom? What does it mean to you?
The only, I don't know if I hear ads from Mexico talking about some political party is going to bring in a Mexico free from fear, you know, and I think, wow, I'd love to know how that's going to work. But the only freedom is freedom from fear, of course. And Gandhi said beautifully, he said, all the demons are running around in our own hearts, and that's where we must confront them every day, I think he said. So the demons, the fear is something we generate. It's resistance, isn't it?
Yes.
And a lot of it is inherited. I find it tremendous. Some days I wake up in just really rotten humor and just, ugh. And sometimes I realize, wow, It wasn't something I ate or did yesterday. It's just out of the blue. And then I realized I hate the term pain body even. Probably my pain body recoils. I just hate that term. That it wasn't an ugly term.
It isn't ugly.
But that's what the thing is. It's this entity of unresolved, unprocessed emotion. And it helps me a little bit to think this isn't all my own shit. I've inherited this from my father and his father, and it's come right down to me. And you know what? If I can manage to work on this stuff, it's not just me, Tom Kelly, going to be a much nicer, wonderful person. It's actually much more powerful than that. It's all those generations back are healed by what I can do right now. Yes. Oh my God, no wonder that's hard work. No wonder that's so hard. And I think almost all of us on the planet right now, this incredibly exciting time, when as we gradually realize that we've inherited this intergenerational stuff, whether we're black or white or whatever color we are, we all have this intergenerational stuff. When we realize that when we're working on this stuff, which isn't our own personal unconscious, a lot of it, when we're working, whether you're a woman or whatever it is, with the feminine stuff and all that's been done to women, when we're working on that stuff and trying to work our way through it and understand it and turn light on it, that we're changing not just our world, not the whole world, but all the worlds, the universes, all the way back through wherever. And that's big work, and it's huge work, and we're doing it together. And it's really hard, and it's horrible work sometimes, because when you're lost in it, it is being willing to ride into hell for a heavenly cause, and it's really horrible sometimes. But when you realize that it's really heavy weights you're lifting, so it can't be easy, and there is an end to it, then you get the courage to work on through it, I think.
Yes. And you know what, I think if you've got children, you work on it even more, because you know that the all that pain stops with you, and it gives them a better chance to the future. I mean, they'll make their own, but they don't have to have a life with all this pain from all the past generations and whatever it is.
Yes.
And that's amazing as well.
Yes.
And of course, then you can also give permission, for the want of a better word, to the rest of the collective, to the rest of the world, the universes. And so I love that. So yeah, it's this is a beautiful time. I think it's a beautiful time to be alive. And I know there's so many things happening in the world that everyone's going like, ah, it's there for a reason. And that truth and all those things are coming up. That is so beautiful. So what are your last thoughts for this crazy conversation that we had, Tom?
My last thoughts are, I would like it to continue all day, please. When Carl Jung and Freud met first, they talked for 11 or 12 hours, I think, on end. And if those had stayed friends to the end, psychiatry wouldn't have turned into what it did turn into. Jung was a totally different kettle of fish. You know, Jung said, so many things he said. He said everyone's an atheist until they block their host's toilet, or he's credited with saying that. I don't know if he said that. He said, who looks outside dreams, who looks within awakens. He said when the meeting of two personalities, I think he said, is like the meeting of two chemicals or substances, either both remain inert or both are transformed. And I knew that any contact with you would transform me. Thank you, Carina, and it did. But I knew that when you were going to ask me this last question, I said, I don't care what question she asked, I'm going to tell her about Dolly Parton anyway. So, but you opened the door. Dolly Parton said, find out who you are and do it on purpose, which is the essence of what every guru, and she lived that, I think. Find out who you are and do it on purpose. She said,
I love that.
You can't believe how much money it takes to look this cheap, she said. But she also said that she gets sick every time she sees a school bus, she said, those poor kids. And when you talk about doing stuff for our children, it's very hard not to see kids and young people in California as not being much older souls, I think, than my generation, much more advanced beings than my people in Ireland. You look at these kids and they see the world totally differently. They don't seem to see races. They don't seem to see black and white. A lot of the girls say, why would I have babies? Which is a different mindset. And when Dolly Parton said, when I see a school bus, I want to be sick, those poor kids. When I read that, I said to my wife, Kelly, who's much more of a philosopher than I am, I said, honey, Dolly had a really tough schooling, obviously, and she turned into this perfect person. I had a really tough time at school, hated it, and I turned into this perfect person, obviously. So if our kids, with all this emphasis the teachers have on having fun and being engaged and having a good time at school, how's that going to work out? And my wife said, honey, when you and Dolly hit this planet, it was a very different planet. And there were a lot of social upheavals, women's rights and African Americans' rights and civil rights and stuff. These kids are hitting a very different planet, and they are, thankfully. Yes. So it's not just the work we're doing for them and they're doing for us, but they are showing us a lot.